we need to go ahead and cut down our zipper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my trimmers here and cut off the zipper like so. Then you can discard the rest of the zipper. I'm going to tack down each side of the tape below the zipper stop onto each seam allowance. So I'm going to just do a line from about here all the way down to the bottom, backstitch at both ends, and then that will be the securing and finishing stitch for each side of our zipper. Alrighty, so this finishes off our zipper, and now we can bring in our lining and finish up. So we're going to go ahead and begin working with our lining, and the first thing that we're going to do with our lining is use it to finish off the zipper seam allowances on the side seam of our skirt. Usually you can turn the seam allowances down on your lining and hand sew it into place, but for this technique I'm going to show you how to finish this area off with your machine. So I have my skirt here with the wrong side out, and I'm going to take my skirt lining pieces, which you should have already sewn together using the exact same steps that we used to sew the leather fabric, and I'm going to place the lining with the right side out inside of my skirt so that the right sides are facing each other. So this is my waistline all around here. And I'm going to match up the zipper opening side of my lining to the zipper opening side of my fashion fabric, like so. I'm going to start placing clips along both sides of my zipper, like so. You also want to make sure that you keep track of which side is your front and which side is your back. I used a double pin on my lining to keep track of the back of my lining and a clip to keep track of the back of my skirt, because you don't want to accidentally interchange them. So I'm going to come to the other side of my zipper like so, and again the right sides are facing each other, glittery side to red side. And I'm going to start placing clips along that edge, and if you remember, we have a notch here that should match like so. Place a clip there, and then come to the other side and match that same notch. Now what we have is our lining inside of our skirt, right sides together, glittery side to red side, and we have right sides together pinned on our zipper seam allowance edges like so. And what we're going to do is we are going to stitch from the top of our waist all the way down to as far as we can get on the bottom of our zipper, back stitch and cut our thread, and then that will finish off both sides of our zipper, so that way we don't have to hand stitch them in place. I still have my zipper foot on my machine, and I am just going to sew about 1/4 of an inch away from the edges, and just work your way down this side. And you're going to sew as far down as you can get. You will not be able to get all the way down and past the zipper pull, but as long as you end right above where it is sitting right now, at the very bottom of my zipper opening, you'll be fine. So make sure everything stays nice and flat. And I'm going to actually stop stitching a little bit past my notch here. And then back stitch really well here, and then cut my thread. And then you're going to flip over to the other side, position that under your needle. Again, being mindful of your zipper pull, and start stitching, back stitch, and work your way to the top. And then once you get to the top, go ahead and back stitch and cut your thread. And once you have stitched both sides, this is what it'll look like. This is one side of my zipper and this is the other side of my zipper. Again, what this is going to do is finish off our zipper edge and our seam allowance, so that way we don't have to do any hand stitching to finish this off. You'll go ahead and trim off any threads that need to be trimmed. And at this point, we can go ahead and flip our skirt right side out like so. But if you can see, my lining is still on the outside. I'm going to insert the lining inside of the skirt. My lining is now sewn into the skirt around the zipper edges, and it is clean finished on both sides. This works really excellent with invisible zippers. So after you have sewn your lining to both sides of your zipper seam allowance, this is what it will look like. You'll have your zipper inserted into your seam and your lining neatly finishes off both sides. And what we did, in case it was a little bit confusing at the sewing machine, we did right sides together with the lining and the self fabric. We sewed from the top of the waist down as far as we could before the zipper pull. And then we repeated that step to the other side. And that is what finishes off your zipper opening. And once you have flipped your lining into the inside of your skirt like I have here, you want to go and make sure that all of your seams match. So your side front seams will match, your center front notch will match, your other side front seam will match, your other side seam will match, and so on. I went ahead and placed clips all around the waistline, because what we're going to do now is we are going to take this back to the sewing machine and do a basting stitch all the way around the waistline, securing these two together. And then you're going to grab your waistband and we are going to finish up this skirt. Once you have basted both of your layers together along the waistline, this is what it'll look like. And you want to make sure that you're using the longest possible stitch on your sewing machine to make sure that we hold everything together nicely. So now what we're going to do is grab our waistband and finish off our waist. So what I have done here already is I have finished off the bottom edge of my waistband using double fold bias tape. You can either do this, or once our waistband is sewn to the waist, you can turn under the seam allowance on the bottom edge and slip stitch on the wrong side, encasing the waistline seam. I am going to actually go with this method of bias tape and then top stitching from the right side, catching this edge on the wrong side. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to grab my waistband and I'm going to start matching my notches to the waistline of my skirt. This notch represents the finished edge of the right side of my zipper opening. So I'm going to place a clip there. And my next notch will be the center front marking, which is here. Place a clip there. You're just going to place a clip at all of your matching points. This notch matches up with my side seam. My next notch will match with my center back notch. And then my final notch will finish with the finished edge of my zipper opening on the opposite side. Place a clip there. And then you just want to place a clip anywhere else that you feel necessary. And just take note, if you decide to do the bias binding finish on the bottom edge, make sure that it is the bottom edge, meaning this is going to be the edge that gets folded under into the inside of the skirt, and finished it will be on the inside against your lining like this. So let's go ahead and move to the sewing machine and we will get this stitched on and then finish off our waistband. I have now sewn my waistband all the way around the waist from edge to edge, and now we are going to finish off our waistband. So first off, I'm going to work with this side, and what I have done here is I have turned under the seam allowance 1/2 inch on this side and 1/2 inch on this side and folded my waistband in half. What we're going to do is we are going to stitch a line that is flush with the zipper edge, and this will finish off this side of our zipper. Now I have placed my work under the sewing machine, and I even drew myself a little black line here just to give myself a guide to sew on. And I'm going to place a piece of tracing paper underneath just because we are gonna have the right side exposed underneath and we don't want it to stick to the machine. So I'm just going to follow that line from top to bottom. And adjust if you need to. And then sew all the way down to the bottom. And then back stitch. And then cut your thread. I'm going to trim my thread off. You can tear off the tracing paper and cut off the extra like so. And then I'm going to flip this to the right side. And with this, that finishes off this side of our zipper. As you can see, it's nice and flush with the zipper. And now we can go ahead and do the other side. For my other side, it's a little bit different because I patterned my waistband to overlap. So what I'm going to do is start stitching as close as I can get to this stitching line, come to this corner, pivot, and then come to the end, back stitch, and cut my thread. And this will finish off this side of my waistband. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sink my needle down where it needs to go first to meet the stitching that was already there. Sit down on my fabric and carefully begin stitching. To come and stitch to the corner, and then we're going to pivot. Very good. Back stitch and cut your thread and trim down this side, trim off the corner, and then trim off this corner. Flip this to the inside, and now this finishes this side of our zipper opening. And now we just need to get this secured onto the wrong side, so that way we can do our top stitch from the right side and get this nice and secured in place. So to do that, I am just going to make sure that my folded waistband measures 1.5 inches. And then once your measurement is correct, you can place a clip here. And you're going to do that all the way around, making sure to measure it evenly. So after you've gone ahead and measured the width of your waistband and make sure that it is the correct width all the way around, you're going to take Wonder Clips and clip the fold to make sure that it stays in place while you do your stitching line around the waistline. I'm going to be stitching at center needle position, lining up the seam line with the inner edge of my presser foot. Make sure that line stays butted up against that all the way until we get to the other side. Another good idea is to take some scrap fabric and fold it up and place it just behind the presser foot like this, just to even out the layers, just in case your presser foot wants to get hung up and not move. Start stitching. We're going to work our way all the way to the other side. Alrighty, so once you reach the other side of your zipper opening, you want to stitch a little bit past it like I have here, and then break your thread. What we're going to do now is start back at the other side where we started here, and we're going to start stitching where we left off and go up and all the way around to the other side of our waistband. This is going to help to keep our waistband nice and flat and flush against the body. So let's go ahead and do that, and then this will be the final step to finishing our waistband. Once you reach the end of top stitching your waistband, you're going to cut your thread. And then at this point, this is what your waistband will look like. And you can go ahead and start tearing off the tissue paper and getting this ready to wear. Once you have completed top stitching your waistband, this is what it will look like. And at this point, we are all finished with our skirt. The last thing you want to do is to apply the fastener of your choice for the waistband. I went ahead and chose a hammer-on snap closure. And as you can see here, looking at the inside of my skirt, my finish here is nice and smooth, and the top stitching secured the edge nice and securely here. And now we also just have this really nice bias bound edge. You can go ahead and sew your label in here if you have a label. And with that, you are all done. Congratulations on completing this faux leather skirt. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.